Welcome back, everybody. We are on part 3 of episode 10 of the For Real Movie Club podcast for January. We're talking thriller movies, and now we're on a neo-noir psychological thriller film directed by Christopher Nolan. You should know, but we're talking about by then.
Mm.
Memento. And we're going to start off with a rating of 0 to 10, and then we're going to backtrack. I'm just kidding. How much of a mindfuck would it be if I did that on this? But
Yeah, we should start this review from Memento backwards.
right. So final thoughts, and then we'll go to introductions of who everybody is, and then we'll backtrack again to the introductions, and because this movie,
and then move around some more.
yeah, this movie messes with you. It came out in the year 2000, and man, immediately when I had seen this movie, which was very soon after it had come out, I knew that I wanted to check it out just from hearing that this was a film that was just edited like crazy and everything. But we'll get into some of that talk a little bit later. Caroline, give us a breakdown of Memento.
All right. So Memento is a movie about a man that creates a strange system to help him remember things, and that includes lots of notes and even tattoos, so that he can find the murder of his wife, even though he suffers from short-term memory loss, it doesn't help him out for sure.
It inspired that song Amnesia by Chumbawamba. Do you suffer from short-term memory?
Wait,
It's long-term memory loss. That's what. No, I'm just joking.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Actually, now I'll find some information that it's true or something. I don't know. It's probably around this time, 90s,
Yeah.
2000s. I don't know. Non sequitur.
Yeah. Chumbawamba had that album out in '98, but I only know that one song.
Never mind. Yeah, that's too early then. But yes, Caroline's right. The movie does surround the idea of somebody who has short-term memory loss. He is tracking down John G. That's one of the only things that we know for a good portion of the movie.
Yeah.
Although you can't technically say that you know it from the first third of the movie or the first half of the movie or whatever, because this is, if you think Pulp Fiction is edited in a confusing way, and there's some people out there that do, and shame on you if you do. You can't follow Pulp Fiction? Come on.
Yeah, you have issues.
Yeah, if you can't follow Pulp Fiction, you are not going to be able to figure out Memento. And there's people that can't even pronounce the name of the movie correctly. I don't know how many people call it Memento all the time. Drives me nuts. But Memento,
the fresh maker.
Yeah. I wanted so badly to film a sketch called Mementos, and then they ended up doing it on SNL or something, and I was just like, shit, why didn't I buy a camera and get it up and running faster? But Memento is, if there's anything about this movie that we can talk about, before we get even into casting and music and favorite scenes and whatever like that, I mean, let's talk about the elephant in the room, the editing. There are people that write papers about how this film is edited and how you have to draw charts and graphs and, and it's like, you can't even say that this is all backwards or that this is all, we skip from A to C to B to D, because you don't. You sometimes go from scene F and then you go to the beginning of scene F right after it, and it's insane. It's tough to follow, and it pretty much guarantees that you're watching this movie at least twice, if not 3 times, before you figure out exactly what's going on.
That's true.
Here's the thing. I disagree. I think it's really, really linear because you have 2 lines to follow. You have the black and white, which has a beginning, and it's fluid, and it's what cuts the storytelling, cuts the parts. Whenever you see the colors and all, the storytelling becomes backwards, in a sense that you begin, let's say, with from point F to point G. When that scene ends, you have the black and white again, when he's talking on the phone and he's telling a story, and then all of a sudden you start in point E, which then ends at point F. And then it's the black and white again, which is that linear, he's talking on the phone, telling the story. mentioning Sam and a similar case of memory loss. Then you start at point D, which goes to which in the end is point E, and then all the way that happens all the way back to point A, and it makes sense. It totally makes sense. I don't think it's that confusing. I mean, I had seen Pulp Fiction already, so this is much easier than Pulp Fiction.
Oh, you'd say it's easier.
Much easier, yeah, because there's only two lines to follow. In Pulp Fiction, it's A, F, X, M, B, and stuff.
Okay.
People listening on YouTube, leave a comment below. Tell us what you think is easier and which one's harder. I'm curious to see what other people think too about that. So let's jump into the casting side of things. We've got people that are relatively known, but they're not A-list stars. I mean, Guy Pearce is a guy who this movie sort of boosted him up a little bit. Carrie-Anne Moss, of course, she has been mostly known for The Matrix. And good old Joey Pants is just one of those guys. You see him and you're like, oh, I saw him in that other thing. Like, and then everybody else essentially is an unknown at best. But what do you think about the casting? Should we have, the girl from CSI and the guy from Heroes? Like, are they standouts, or are all these kind of things people that you could have just grabbed somebody else for it? What do you think, Caroline?
I don't know. I mean, I like the editing. I like Guy Pearce. He's just weird ass looking, and he has like that confused look on his face. Like normally, I feel like. So to me, it just made a lot of sense to have him in that movie. And Carrie-Anne Moss, she looks such a cold bitch. So whenever she's in the movie, like I just love her because I know she's just gonna do that. She just looks super icy, and it just fits. I mean, mainly, I feel like with all the supporting characters in this movie, we're with Guy Pearce's character in the movie. He's the main character, so we're following him around. We don't know who to trust. And I feel like everybody else in the movie kind of looks... I mean, they don't look like they're thugs and they're going to stab you in the back. But they just have a look about them that they're just, like, not trusting people. It's not like if you had... I don't know, what's his face? The one that just did The Interview. Seth Rogen. Like, he could never play someone like that would possibly be sneaky and stab you and you don't know how to treat it. It kind of looks like a teddy bear. And I just feel like the people that they casted for this movie, they just work like that, They look okay. They don't have any scars on their face. They don't have an eye patch. But they're all hiding something.
The pirate scene was cut out.
Damn pirate scene. But they look like they're hiding something and that they might not be trustworthy. So to me, it definitely works.
Yeah, there's a different sketchiness from Joe Pantoliano and Tom Hanks.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, Tom Hanks. Like, puts Forrest Gump right there and trying to... No. Like,
although it'd be kind of funny to see him do the whole Lenny thing.
Lenny! Life's a box of chocolate.
Eddie, what do you think about the casting?
It was great. I can't find anything wrong with it. I think Guy Pearce did a great job. Yeah, he looked kind of lost, supposedly, but I mean, he's a great actor. I like him in a lot of different stuff. I don't know why. Like, I just, for some reason, I like a lot of European actors. I mean, there's something particularly, I don't know what it is. Their training is more based on the stage, theater, maybe Shakespearean or something. I'm not saying that Guy Pearce is that. I don't know much about him, but I thought he was great. And Carrie-Anne Moss was great. I guess she was writing the whole, Hollywood loves you kind of thing after The Matrix. and she starred in this good movie. Because I haven't heard from her since. So
Yeah,
I
she
don't know
hasn't
if
really
she's
done anything.
yeah. And Joe, was it Joe Pantoliano? Is that
Hmm.
it? Yeah, he was great in Bad Boys. He was in Bad Boys, right? He was the boss.
I think he was. I know he was
Yeah,
in
Woozah,
Daredevil, and
Woozah, Woozah, right? Is that it?
I haven't seen Bad Boys in
In
so.
Bad Boys 2, oh, dude, come on. In Bad Boys 2, he's all like Zen and stuff, and every time Will Smith is like, "Yo, boss, we just blew up a whole like warehouse, and the police can like have to pay for it." It's like, Woosah, Woosah. Anyways, I might be wrong. It could be a completely different actor. It could be a different movie. Anyway, could be Anger Management for all I know with Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler. But anyways, um, yeah, the casting was great. I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't know if you replace anyone, could have been different. It could have been a disaster for all I know.
Got to find somebody else who looks confused all the time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Music side of things, I love the music that they used in this. I bought the soundtrack as soon as I could. I listened to multiple songs from the score just regularly. It's a soothing score for the most
Yeah.
part, which actually I don't know if that would say like it hinders the thriller kind of element to it, but I mean this is a different type of animal when it comes to. I could do a good joke with a different type of animal with Silence of the Lambs and stuff, but you know, something like Misery is going to have a darker edge to it than something like this because this is a more tragic movie. So
Yeah.
it needs to have that softer vibe to it, and I think that pulls that off so well. This is the other movie for those that are keeping count, though, that I own and love and have watched a bunch of different times. That and Silence of the Lambs. Um, but the music is fantastic, and I think that's like what easily one of my favorite things about the movie. Um, Personally, at least, I don't know. But what do you guys think about the music?
I like
Yeah,
it. I mean,
think, go ahead, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. You understand more about this than I do, so go ahead.
Well, okay. Well, is he like I mentioned in Misery and Silence of the Lambs? It's well more Misery. It's kind of like it was back then. It was still lacking in this quality department. A lot of things were still somewhat fillers, and Hollywood was kind of bland. And then computers came by. You know, things became a lot almost say easier and faster to produce, and new ideas started coming out. You know, technology started catching up in that aspect. And this, you know, Memento is one of those movies where it first starts to show. You know, Requiem for a Dream, for instance. I think it's Hans Zimmer. Uh, you know, because it was Christopher Nolan, I thought maybe Hans Zimmer did this, but no, it's David Julian, who I never heard of. Yeah, there were parts in the movie where I was like, wow, I was expecting something totally cliche, but no, it's actually something really cool. Like you know, nothing I'd buy a soundtrack to, but it's definitely great.
What about you, Caroline?
I enjoyed it. Again, like it didn't like take me out of the movie. Like since like I don't really I mean, I'm not really knowledgeable when it comes to music and sounds in general, even because my hearing's pretty bad. I it didn't take me out, so to me, like that's a plus. Like I hate when all of a sudden I'm no longer there with the characters in the story, and I'm like more concerned about what is that noise that I'm hearing? Like what music is playing? Oh, let me Shazam that. Like, yeah, that's cool when you watch a movie after maybe the second time and you're just paying attention to different details. But to me, music is important. It definitely is there to up the ante or to set up the mood. And with Memento, like I'm one of those people that when I first watched it, I mean, I only figured out what was going on really towards the end, and I was like, "Oh, holy shit!" But throughout the movie, I was just like so entranced of, "Oh my god, like what's going on? Like what are these tattoos about? Like oh," and I love this scene where he's like, I am chasing someone. Oh no, I'm being chased, and to me, like that, like that not only is one of my favorite things, but to me, like that was my experience with Memento, the first time I watched it, and the music, just like you said, like it's really soothing. So it's not something that I was expecting, I guess, in a movie like that, because I was like so on edge. But it made sense to me because after all, it's not something. It's still a dark movie. I still feel like there's like a big, deep darkness to it, but it's very tragic at the same time, especially when you find out everything that really happened and you're like, oh my God. And then you realize that he's not going to believe and he's just going to start all over again. It's like hell. Like he's stuck in hell. And it worked. It worked, especially once I figured out what was going on.
So let's start just picking some random things out there that we thought was funny or interesting or whatever. You mentioned how Carrie-Anne Moss just looks like a stone cold bitch, and one of my favorite scenes is when she, reveals to the audience that she's just completely taking advantage of Leonard. And
yeah,
damn, she is a bitch in that scene.
I know. Oh my God, she's just like, oh, she's so icy. And it's funny because she kind of resembles my mom a little bit, but I just feel like she's so icy and just, oh, like at first I was like, oh, maybe like she's someone I can trust and somebody that will help Lenny. But damn, girl, like you didn't have to do it like that. That was horrible.
And it's a different level of, you couldn't really say evil, but like a different level of being an antagonist than with the Teddy character, because he's clearly not a great guy if he's doing this, but you still kind of feel like you are upset that he gets killed, like, or at least I do. I don't know.
No, I did too. And like with him, like he was doing something that somebody with like a straight mind probably wouldn't do. But I feel like deep down his intentions made sense to him, and it was like there was some sort of like a weird loyalty on his part. And with her, no, she was just like straight up cold, and which it worked. I mean, I don't dislike her character. I was just like, oh, like I felt so betrayed by her.
Let's see some other things that I had written down about. I always like the line, "I don't feel drunk."
Yeah, there's so many cool lines in that movie. Like I love I'm chasing someone. No, me chase. Like that to me is like, oh, thank you. That's how I feel all the time in this movie.
Something that I didn't realize the multiple times I've seen it beforehand, but I did pick up on it this time around. He never does laundry, does he? So he's just like smelling horrible in this drug dealer's suit for multiple days, and that's...
Maybe it's affected like his sense of smell too, and he just doesn't really remember the smell.
Maybe. So what other ones do you guys want to throw out there to talk about?
Let me pull up my notes. My computer went to sleep. Whoa.
Anything that stands out to you, Eddie?
Well, the scene that most stands out to me, and actually, since the movie is backwards, is actually the credits. Because when it ends, you're like, oh, okay, crap. So Teddy really was just a nice guy, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, man. Yeah, well, like he's by his side, right? And that's when you really get the confirmation, like, okay, the movie ended, so now you know for sure that the last thing you heard was that Teddy was actually giving that whole, opening up, saying, dude, like, I looked after you, you killed the bastard, and whatever. I thought it would make you feel good about it, but no, you didn't. And then it ends, you're like, oh, okay, so that definitely was a confirmation that Teddy's a good guy and that Carrie-Anne Moss is the bitch. Stone cold bitch.
Yeah. I love the whole scene where he's telling the story that's actually his story, but about Sammy. Was it Sammy? Am I confusing this? Yeah.
Sammy Jenkins.
Yeah, Sammy Jenkins. Like, I like the whole sequence. It just, like, it kind of broke my heart, and I just felt like I was just all over the place with the movie that I didn't really connect the dots that could actually be him. And then and then we realized what's going on. And oh man, that was so like that destroyed me a little bit. Like that made me upset. But it's still like one of my favorite sequence. I also love the whole like tattooing of his notes. That was pretty cool and kind of hot. Like it's cool, and I just also like the mood of the whole film because most of it's very like the colors are pretty. Like it wasn't a movie that it was lit and colored something like Seven, for instance, which is another great thriller. Where it's very noir looking. It's very, yes, I mean, Memento, we have the black and white, obviously, but when we have the colored scenes, things are kind of sunny looking in a way. They're not like Seven, for instance, which it looks like it's overcast and raining the whole entire time. And that was good because I feel like if it was kind of like Seven, it would have shifts the mood in a way that the movie didn't need it. So I like that bit a little bit too. And I was just reading how Brad Pitt almost played that role. I don't know. He doesn't look that confused to me. And what I also realized when I was rewatching this is that scene when we see like the comic store, like how we see like there's like a bookstore, yeah, like a comic bookstore. There's like the Batman symbol there, and there's also like the Superman. I was like, oh, maybe like Christopher Nolan took a look in his future and knew that he was going to be involved with like the Batman trilogy and Man of Steel and whatnot. I thought that was kind of cute, but it just might be me being crazy.
That's kind of funny, though. We were talking before we started recording this of just the idea of whether this is Christopher Nolan's best film or not. I am a huge Batman fan. I mean, Batman's easily my favorite superhero character ever and all that. I love Batman Begins. I actually am one of those rare people that thinks that Batman Begins is maybe even a better film than Dark Knight is. And then Dark Knight Rises just kind of falls apart a little bit, but Christopher Nolan is definitely one of my favorite directors. Insomnia, meh.
Yeah.
Interstellar was disappointing, and
oh no, hang on, yeah, I forgot about Interstellar. That movie was amazing.
See, well, I mean, that's a whole discussion for another day.
Yeah.
And I would argue that The Prestige is underwhelming compared to what a lot of people think. I had never saw his first film, but Memento was the first thing that I ever seen of Christopher Nolan's, and when they announced that he was going to be directing, Batman Intimidation Game is what they were calling it at the time, and I was like, that's a stupid title, but I'm totally on board with Christopher Nolan. This is based off of, again, this is every one of the 4 movies that we're doing this month is based off of a previously established work. This is Jonathan Nolan's short story. Jonathan Nolan's his brother.
Yeah.
Jonathan Nolan has really been proven himself as a killer person to watch out for to me because he helped work on the Batman trilogy. He is responsible for definitely one of my favorite TV shows on TV right now, Person of Interest, which is just Batman with cops. But this team of Christopher Nolan and Jonathan Nolan, they're killing it in this movie. And I think that's a great representation. If anybody watches this movie and they like it, I think that they got to check out his other work. But tying into that and getting your opinions about what the best Nolan film is and where this kind of places in there, but also before I pass it off to you guys, there's a theory that goes around now, and I don't think it's got much validity to it, but I wanted to get your opinions about this too. A lot of people are saying what they think is going on here is that Christopher Nolan made a series of films about making films, and that Memento is the first one of them, which is about the film editing process. The Prestige is one about filmmaking in general, where you uh, present the audience with something, and you try to trick them with a twist at the end and different stuff like that. Like, you're pulling the magic trick over their eyes. And Inception is one about getting into the psyche of your uh, audience, and it essentially breaks down to Memento's film editing, uh, Prestige is direction, and Inception is writing.
I think that's totally right.
Tying that in together and just talking about Nolan in general, what do you guys feel about this? How does Memento stand up and all that? Caroline, go with you first.
Why are you killing me first? I'm still like trying to digest everything you just said, and I'm trying to make sense of it. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Eddie.
All right. No, I think that's totally right. I saw his first movie, and I don't know if it's anything to do with it, but maybe it's the first movie is about like how to make a movie in black and white. It's not a bad movie. It's pretty cool as far as the simplicity of it. I think that's exactly right. But if you ask Christopher Nolan about it, he'd be like, "Sure, I guess." I think he did it subconsciously. He knew what he was doing, but he didn't do it like deliberately to work on the editing. Maybe he just thought like Memento would be interesting if we did this editing and all that, and then maybe the Prestige just kind of worked out that way, and so forth. It's just I think it happened by accident, but yeah, I think he's a master director.
He definitely ties in with themes with everything that he does. I mean,
Yeah.
clearly Batman Begins is about fear, and Memento is about memory, and so I could see that being a subconscious thing too. I don't put much validity in the actual theory that he's like plotting this out and being like, I'm gonna get them with this one, and like
you can do it. You can form out a theory about anything in his movies and still find evidence if you really dig into it.
Right.
Like if you want that to be a real deal, yeah, you're going to find if you I don't know, if you maybe have the theory that he's obsessed with the number 3. You're gonna find evidence that he's obsessed with the number 3 in every single movie. I guarantee you. Like I don't have an obsession with the number 3. I'm just like throwing something out there. But
is that because this is part 3?
I just like throw out a number, but see, you found evidence. Like, see?
Yeah, there you go.
But I really don't know. I just feel like sometimes people just read too much into things, and they just have to calm their asses down and enjoy a good movie, and that's that. I don't know.
Well, let's break this down. Final thoughts and rating 0 to 10, and in general, what do you think is the most thrilling aspect of this movie too? We'll throw that out there as another discussion point. Eddie?
Yeah, when you first when you see the second slice of the story being told, you're not sure what's going on because it's not front to back, it's back to front. And then when you get to the end of that scene, it's like, oh, okay, now I get it, sort of. You're still not sure. And then you go to the third one, and then you finally get to the end. It's like, oh yeah, so that's what that other one started. That's when you finally figure it out. So I think it's the kind of movie you definitely want to watch it again, at least twice, to really grasp it. And I think that frustration of not really knowing what's going on in the very beginning might actually, for some people, might actually play it as a negative aspect, because usually you want to digest you really want to enjoy a movie to its fullest. And I don't think it's possible with the first time you watch Memento. It's kind of like, oh man, I am lost here. And then when you finally get it, it's like, oh, okay, go back. I got it. Go back, please. I want to see it again. It's like, oh. So it's interesting. It's kind of like a little mind game.
What would you get it out of a 10 rating?
Yeah, I'd give it an 8 because I think in terms of cinematography, it's extremely interesting. It deserves recognition, and the other aspects of the movie are great. Production's great, the acting's great, the music was great, the Foley was great, ADR, all that.
Yeah, shame on you, Academy, for not giving this best film editing. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the
Yeah,
Academy is like all fucked up.
I can still understand because it's still very linear. You know,
What about
it might be genius from our point of view, but from a technicality point of view, there maybe that year, was it nominated or not?
Yeah, it was nominated. I think
Okay.
Lord of the Rings won.
Ugh.
Yeah, there you go. Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta understand it's a lot of mafia also.
What about you, Caroline? Final thoughts, 0 to 10. Thoughts on the most thrilling aspect of the movie too.
Well, most thrilling aspect for me was definitely not really knowing what the hell was going on, but at the same time, not one moment of the movie I felt disconnected from Lenny, and I feel like that was pretty awesome that they could create this whole excuse me this whole story with this character doesn't really remember what he just did, and he's trying to go into this like really intense journey of finding his wife's killer, but then he doesn't remember. He has to like keep reminding himself, and I feel like it was pretty badass that they were able to do that without being boring and without you losing contact with him. And I don't have a short term memory problem, I don't think, but I totally empathize with him throughout the whole movie. Like, I wanted him to be okay. I didn't want anything bad to happen to him. I didn't want to trust the people that he was around because he didn't want to trust the people he was around. He didn't know if he could trust them. I didn't know if I could trust them. And I feel like every time that happens in a movie, for me, that just makes everything worth it. Because it's hard to do. It's hard for somebody to actually connect with another human being like that without like being in the same place and without like touching that human being. And I think that's awesome. I love the editing. I love the acting. Carrie Ann Moss, ice cold bitch. I still love her. Yeah, like I love that movie. It was really, really great. I feel like I'll give it a 9.5. I mean, I really don't. I don't think I can find anything bad in it. I feel like for me, like the only bad thing is that like there's no really horrible torture scene, but it didn't bother me in that movie. Like I was with it and I watched it many times now, and I'm not gonna get tired of watching it again and again. It's a good movie.
All right, so first things first, let's get into the casting. I had to do another joke about editing that.
I was so confused. Like, wait.
I was trying to figure out what I would end up referencing later on. I was actually going to play with your head a little bit and ask you to do a 0 to 10 again, and I thought that'd be a little bit mean. I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. Slightly lower than Silence of the Lambs as far as quality, but I think that this is another movie that I actually recommend this movie to almost anybody for anything for the most part. Especially if they say that they like movies like The Usual Suspects or Fight Club or something, then I'll immediately go to check out Memento because it's so awesome, and check it out for a second time too. But that'll round us out for Memento. We have one more movie to do on this list of our January thrillers, and that is Oldboy from 2003 in part 4. So stay tuned, everybody. Wherever you're watching it, you should know by now. I've mentioned it multiple times, and if not, then pull a Memento, go back and listen to it again.